This is 11 by 14.
And I have a question.
Go ahead, Margaret.
When you're talking about doing a master copy first, do you mean an actual painting, like the underpainting, or a black and white on paper?
I mean the underpainting. I'm going to, and master copy, I'm glad you asked the question because I want to make sure I define what I'm talking about there. I mean, I want you to treat your little thumbnail, or if you've developed it more into a black and white painting or whatever, however much you've developed that composition, I want you to treat it as though you're doing a master copy of a master. You don't want to change the composition once you have it set, unless you have really good reason to do so. So I like calling it a master copy just because I think that you should take your composition very seriously once you've developed it. But I'm just doing the master copy in this thumbnail.
Okay, so you're saying the master copy should be like the thumbnail that we're going to pick.
Right.
Exactly like
the
that.
master copy is you're doing a master copy of the thumbnail, essentially. So if you can imagine that you had a Rembrandt thumbnail and you were going to copy that Rembrandt thumbnail onto a larger canvas, how your mindset would be if you were doing a copy of that Rembrandt onto that larger canvas. You wouldn't, I don't think in that situation, doing a master copy, you wouldn't change it. You wouldn't invent, new figures into the painting and move things around and then still call it a master copy. You would try to be very faithful to the shapes and the design that you were seeing in that Rembrandt. And I just want, when you come up with a final composition, to try your best to have that same kind of intensity and focus when you're copying your thumbnail onto your panel.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Absolutely. So I'm
Don't you
going
do
to,
your master copy in Photoshop?
say again?
Don't you do your master copy, your final value study in Photoshop? And you should use that.
So I create designs in Photoshop, but at the stage that I call the master copy doesn't happen until I'm actually copying those shapes onto my panel.
Okay.
So
But the composition, oh, go on.
no, I was just saying, basically, you're calling the underpainting a master copy, right?
Of the thumbnail, yeah.
The
And I
thumbnail, right.
didn't explain that very well. I'm sorry, everyone. So the why I'm using the term master copy is to get at a mindset. So I don't want you to create a composition, whether you do it with Photoshop or Procreate or a thumbnail and a pen or a pencil on a piece of paper. I don't want you to create a composition that's strong and right and a great distribution of shapes, and then once you start your painting, sort of ignore that composition and just create a different design, and a lot of the time not a better design on your canvas. Once you have your design, treat it like a Rembrandt and do as good a copy as you possibly can of those shapes onto your canvas.
Do you ever get tracing paper and simply go to your photocopy of the reference to scale and copy your composition, the shapes onto the canvas?
So the problem with tracing a photograph is going to be a photograph is never going to be almost never going to be a very good design. So I would recommend distancing yourself from the photograph a little bit and coming up with the design first. And yeah, that's if you copy a photograph your painting is almost always going to be subpar. You want to take that photograph and use it to design a painting rather than just copying the photograph onto the panel or your canvas.
No, I meant that you do your composition in Photoshop. You could
Oh,
even use
sure.
dynamic symmetry grids to make sure your shapes are placed where you want them. And then have a reference black and white of that and trace it onto your canvas. I don't know if I'm
Sure.
making sense.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're talking about if you design your composition in Photoshop, after designing your composition, could you just trace that composition onto your panel?
Yeah.
Enlarge it and trace it. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, however you choose to get your composition onto the panel, I use a projector some that
Okay.
helps, especially with the really big paintings, you know, there's no way to size them up so that they'll work. So I just project those on once I have a composition that I like.
What sort of projector do you use?
Let's see. I don't use it very often. It's called an artograph projector. I am using a Filbert number 12 brush here. Just getting these first shapes in. There we go. And if you look at the resource, that line there is just above the third, that upper third, interacting with it for sure. And okay, and I know, I drew these thirds as accurately as I can. There's still some wiggle room here, but I'm going to be bringing in that shoreline there. I'm just going for the big shapes that are easy to see here. This is straight transparent oxide red. Haven't mixed any other color with it. And just massing in these shapes. I think right about in there. Try to look at the big design of the shapes. Don't get carried away. That's just simplified into angles as much as possible. The boat's going to be a little farther over, like right in there. I think this is probably going to have to come over. I just didn't draw my third lines perfectly, so just adjusting that. That boat, we're going to get into a more full conversation about value here in a second, but it is definitely the lightest light. I'm just going to take my paper towel and just, it's not going to white back to white, but I'm just going to give a mark for where I think that's going to land, just about. If I'm saying this is the shore, then that's going to be something like that sail that's all covered up is going to be right about in there. The mast is going to be something like right there. And this is all just a number 3 value. It's pretty dark marsh back here. There's some parts that are lighter. This is the underpainting. This is the part that really frees me up to paint because I'm not going to spend too much time developing something just to realize that It was developed in the wrong place. I'm going to take a number 2 brush here and just be a little bit more specific with that boat right in here. I think the bow is coming to right about there. Okay, and I'm just looking, standing back, looking at my composition sketch. Remember, I'm still trying to, all that talk about a master copy. I want to make sure that my boat goes in the right spot here. Needs to be right about in there. And if something goes a little bit wrong in this stage, we can fix it, right? It's not like paintings aren't forgiving. They are. But again, economy of means. Yes, go ahead. I'm sorry, I thought I heard somebody ask a question, but I can't hear you now. So go ahead and try again.
Mhm.
Okay, and just looking at the big shapes of this boat, how it interacts with this shore. Should be about halfway through the boat. That looks right. And this would come down a little bit farther. That's the marsh behind the boat right here. Okay, I think that is enough. And we're going to come, this is the reflection of the grass right here, coming up in an angle along here. Then there's a little shoal, a little thin spot in the water here. We can see ground through there. And then we've got this sailboat, which actually should come, that mast comes all the way up through here. And it sits above. It's going to be very geometric with this little shape right in here. That'll be the reflection. And then some darker lines in here. And one thing I loved about this source, and actually I had to bring this side in and I had to bring this side in to fit them both into an 11 by 14. But the way that we can lead the eye down and into the piece right here, and there's an overlap right here. You can see that tree line going behind like that. So that little overlap is important, these little markers of depth, but then the sort of darks through the grass, the marsh grass, down to here. And then these lines that just lead you all the way to this boat. And of course, this coming up on a third. And the way that there are just multiple ways in and out of this painting. I really, really love that, particularly this right in here, because our eye will come in on this side and come down into the composition. Then this shore, this grass over here. Make sure that our eye can get back in right there. Okay, so that is as much of an underpainting as I need. You could do more. I could do more, but I like this because it is a lot easier for me to judge value and shape and the particulars of the drawing with opaque paint. But here I have where the big shapes are going to go. So this is my design. And here's my painting, my underpainting now of that design. Oh, and one thing more, by putting the boat in the right place, I put the mast and the rigging and all the things that are going to come onto that boat in the right place. I don't need detail at this stage, I just need placement. So now that that's said,